Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer number 7512-632 louver door gravity non-hold open pivot. So as you can see, there's different components that are here, and I'll show them to you all one at a time. Then we'll go over the installation instructions, and then some odds and ends about going about the installation of the material. So first of all, what we have here is the bottom assembly, the bottom pivot style. And this is the portion that goes in or attaches to the bottom of the door. What makes it gravity type is obviously that miter cut that's on this piece of material, and of course the other preparation is done inside of there, such that when the door is pushed open in either direction, it obviously raises, and then the weight of the door itself will bring it back to center. Okay. The top pivot assembly, as a result, top pivot assembly looks like this, and then the top of your door portion looks like this. And of course, when it's installed, it's going to look like this, because keep in mind the door lifts up as it's opening and closing. Now, there is some requirements for the door when you're using this. Let's go over that information now. It's a gravity sort of pivot situation that you can see in the extended description. Double acting naturally, non-handed of course. Maximum door width 30-inch. Door thickness from 7/8 to 1 5/8. Maximum door weight 50 pounds, which is pretty ample for typical cafe sort of double acting saloon type doors. Includes the jam bracket assembly, which is really the 90-degree turn to the jam that you see top and bottom. Okay. Also, with all these components, you're going to get a package of screws and a complementary finish. So the 7512 means those specifications: double acting, non-hold open, rated for that size and thickness of door. The -632 stands for the fact that this is in a US 3 or 632 polished brass finish. Polished brass is the shiny brass. The 632 means that, but it also means that it's made of steel, okay, not solid brass material. Now, moving forward to the template and the installation instructions. The installation instructions are what is included in the package when you get them, and the template gives a clinical amount of dimensional information not given on the installation instructions. Both are handy to have, but unless you need to know exactly all those dimensions in terms of perhaps mortising the door for the material prior to having it in your hand, you probably just want to review the installation instructions. That's where we're going to start. So the upper left-hand corner shows the constituent parts: top bracket, top pivot, bottom pivot, cylinder and cam, square drive, and that comes already assembled, so you don't really remove that from the door, even though you can. We'll discuss that in a moment. And then the nut. Step 1. Fasten bottom bracket to the jamb. So what they're saying here is you'll need to attach the bracket to the jamb, and at that point, to get access to the screws, you'll end up removing that. Okay, well, we'll talk about another reason to remove that. You'll be able to get access to the jamb. You're obviously going to place it. It needs to be plumb, otherwise your door is not going to work real well. It needs to be completely plumb. Be sure bottom bracket is in vertical alignment with the top bracket. Jumping ahead a little bit, of course, that's sentence in step 1. Bottom bracket only can be installed this way, well, glad it wasn't glass, or this way, doesn't really matter. Either way, it'll work. Step 2, attach your cylinder and cam assembly. There's a square drive to the bottom of that. There's a star drive to the bottom of that. You'll need to make sure that that mitered cut gravity pivot piece that's in there is in the exact proper alignment when you're attaching it back together. And that's just easily done by eyeing it up. Do not over tighten the nut. You don't want to damage the internal components that are in here by driving it too hard. Okay, their step doesn't indicate to attach the upper bracket yet, but that's going to be coming up. Now, at this point, you've got this attached to the jamb. Okay, screws are provided. Step 3, and this is really the important part, or the critical part, and something that needs to be looked at to understand the entire installation aspect before beginning. Step 3, round jamb edge of door with a 7/8 radius. So they need, as shown there, the pivot side of the door with a radius. Think of the top row of tile in a bathroom. Well, that's called a bullnose. If you do it on the entire edge of the door, it becomes radiused. They need a 7/8 radius on that, which makes for an 1 3/4 diameter round over bit. So you'll need to be able to provide that sort of radius. Otherwise, if you've got a square edge door, because your dimensions are fixed from here to the center line, the vertical axis pivoting to the jamb, your door will not operate correctly. You've got to have a pivot, radiused edge. Just quickly, I've done that sort of preparation to wood doors a lot of times. Because it's a shop setting, I would do it often. I would have a router that has been modified to accept a large round over bit in it, carbide tipped. I'd set the depth such that my arc of my radius was exiting right at the midpoint in the thickness of the door. I would clamp it down to my workstation. I would take my round over bit with my router and run it down one time, and then just one more time for a cleaning pass. Make sure that when you're exiting the door, you're not pushing this way at all. You don't want to bring that round over to the bottom or top of the door. Take that door and flip it over, clamp it back down, and do that preparation again, only 2 times, because you'll probably have a large horsepower router, because you're removing a lot of material in a single pass. Because the depth is fixed, you don't want to have to set that depth multiple times. You want to just be very careful when you're running that down the edge of the door to keep the router both flat on the face of the door, but all, not tipping it front or back or forward, really, towards you, and then not pushing against the door. Once you've got it radiused over, there's no requirement of doing it on the opposite side, although it does make for a nice look, and it does allow for a tighter margin between the doors. What you'll end up seeing on this is that when you look at the template, which is not specifically drawn out on the installation instructions, when you have a 7/8 radius, you'll be able to get yourself down to a 5/32 of an inch clearance, which is just heavy on 1/8 of an inch. So when you radius that over, you're going to have a tight margin there. And if you do it on the opposite side, you can count on basically about 1/8 of an inch between the radiused over end of the door and the other door or the jamb. So if you go with a square edge on the opposite side, you're going to need to kick that out, depending on your door thickness, a 1/4 inch, maybe 3/8, because you need to account for that square edge preparation to get through the door. Once you have that done, you'll be able to attach the top pivot to the top of the door. Then, moving to step 4, fasten the top bracket, allowing clearance between the top bracket and top pivot plate. Be sure that they are in vertical alignment with the bottom bracket. So the critical dimension looking at there in step 4 is that 3/4 inch dimension, because again, your door lifts up. Okay, you're going to leave that 3/4 inch margin as shown between the bottom of the top bracket and what is the top of the door top pivot. Critical to obviously make sure that the vertical axis of pivoting is plumb, otherwise your door is not going to work really well. Make sure that that is the case. Now moving towards the note on the bottom, you can see a reference to the 7512-H with a hold open feature. Nothing special about it. What happens there is that these cams are just lopped off flat so that you can get the door to 90 degrees and it will just rest. The positive and negative, because they're flattened off, will just rest at that position until you tug them back closed. Looking back at the template, so what you're seeing there is just a dimensional drawing of all of the constituent parts. Okay, that's what's different from the installation instructions. I won't go over all those points. They're just, it's all drawn there. As referred to earlier, it shows the 5/32 clearance between the jamb and the pivot edge of the door. The other thing that's important to note about this is that it shows that you can take your door and just literally attach this to the bottom of your door, rest the entire door on top of it, or it shows how you can notch out your door to get a different kind of saloon look. I obviously don't see that as often, because generally what happens is cutting that 2 1/4 by whatever height suits your application notch can destroy the construction of the door. Your door may not be built to be able to stay together after taking that much out of it. So keep that in mind before you consider that. You might have the styles of the door might have your construction such that you've got it all. So that preparation to the bottom of the door, I have seen plenty of times, but generally the majority of time it's installed just flush to the bottom of the door without doing that sort of preparation. Bommer has the 7512 available, like we said earlier, in hold open functions, as well as several different architectural finishes. If you have any questions on the Bommer 7512 double acting cafe or gravity cafe louver type saloon door, or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to us. The last thing I'd like to point out to you is the logo, and right above it says Made in USA, a fact that Bommer is quite proud of, as am I to represent them. Thank you very much.